Lisa has been in the courtroom all day. Lisa's also joined by Attorney Adam Konta. Lisa, what was it like inside and what happened this morning?
Well, first of all, the witness who was probably the key witness is going to turn out to be. I'm getting some feedback on my.
On your phone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, the person who is probably one of the most important witnesses of this entire pretrial hearing so far was on the stand. Her name is Christine Wasser. She's an Altoona Police Department officer. She is actually the one who went through that backpack at that McDonald's on December 9th. So basically what's been happening all morning is, gotta put these gloves on. You can hear the wind. We're making it happen though, guys. We're making it happen. So she's the one that responded to McDonald's, was going through the backpack, and it's very, very important because that whether or not this backpack is allowed in is going to determine what's happening, with the whole case. But while I was in the courtroom, look who pops in, Adam Konta, one of our criminal defense attorneys that's been helping us understand all this.
Absolutely.
And I think it's really important for, he was there. I said, can you come down and talk with us and break this down for us about how important this was? Because, Adam, from what you saw.
Yeah, sure. So what they have to do with her on the stand is establish a few things. One, that Luigi was under arrest. Because if he was under arrest, that allows the police to then search incident to arrest. And they're going to say that he was under arrest for a false ID. Now what that does is that allows them to search with what's in his grabbable area. If this was a house, for instance, they wouldn't be able to go through the whole house, but they can search what's in his area to do two things: to try to prevent the officers from getting hurt by anything that's in the bag, and also to prevent destruction of evidence. But what they need to establish is not only was he under arrest, not only did they have some sort of fear that would allow them to search for a bomb, but they're going to have an explanation. And here's the key part, because that notebook is in a separate category. The notebook that has all his ramblings is clearly not a weapon. We can all agree on that. And so they're going to have to explain why they looked at that notebook, saw that it wasn't a weapon, but still went through it to extract information. If you think of it like a hard drive, it's much easier for us to think like, oh yeah, of course they would need a warrant to go into that hard drive. But think of the notebook in the same way, and they're going to have to establish that there today.
And here's the thing: there was a moment in the courtroom where, just like you see on Law and Order, a lot of these police and crime shows and lawyer, legal shows, where the ADA says to this police officer, Christine Wasser, from the Altoona Police Department, says, do you see the gentleman that you saw, who owned that backpack in this courtroom? He's like literally pointing right to Luigi Mangione there. And I think, just from everything that we've heard also from our colleagues too, were in the courtroom last week, it says Luigi Mangione was paying very close attention to everything that was said. He's leaned over on the table. They had a lot of body cam video that was there throughout, showing it moment by moment. The DA, obviously, they spent many, many hours going through all the body-worn camera from these Altoona police officers, trying to show that, yes, they were doing it by the book. And then at one point, the ADA said to her, so if this was a shoplifter, would you have searched the bag that the shoplifter had? And she said yes. And they have a thing called search incident
to lawful arrest.
Yeah, search incident to arrest, which means basically if somebody's arrested, right? Well, you explain it better than I can.
Like I was saying, if somebody's arrested, you could search for weapons. The main purpose of it is really to make sure that the officers stay safe. So in the shoplifter analogy, sure, you could go into that backpack, but you're looking for knives or guns or something like that. And so they, like I said, they can say that here, that they were going through it for their own safety, but that's not going to get them over the hump for the notebook.
But Adam, one of the points the defense is making in this suppression hearing is that he wasn't Mirandized at the given time that he should have been.
Yep.
How do you understand that? How does it work in the context of this suppression hearing?
So it depends what statements they're going to try to use, because you don't have to Mirandize somebody if you're just asking for your name, your ID, what's called investigative questions. So if you're just trying to get general information here, you don't need Miranda warnings. But anything that's said beyond that, and listen, they had a 20-minute conversation there. And so the defense is going to say, no. This went way beyond the investigative function and went into actually trying to get substantive statements out of him. They're going to say that, listen, as soon as he gave a fake name and they could determined that that was a fake name, that's the only statement that mattered, because that gave them the ability to then arrest him.
But also, one of the things that was revealed this morning in the testimony with this police officer, because literally she's the one that responds. She hears the call over the radio in the police car in another sector of Altoona, and they say identify the person as Luigi Mangione over the radio. She testified to that. And then she also testified to, once they get him in the McDonald's, by the time she gets there, there's other officers there. Mangione is there. She says that we asked him before we opened the backpack, did he want to say anything, tell us what's in the backpack, and he said, I do not wish, something to the effect of, I do not wish to speak. And then the whole time this is going on, Antwan, they were going through minute by minute with the video, and obviously they have it much better organized than last week, because this is such a critical part of the case, according to what we're hearing. And he's standing there with his hands handcuffed behind his back like this, not saying anything. We've all seen like the New York thing where we're like, "Dad, get out of it!" That's not, stop it. There's nothing. It's all very quiet. It's all very calm. And then they go through methodically going through the backpack. And then the other thing that was interesting was there was a debate about whether they should. To search it, which the two supervisors said, yes, it's a search incident to arrest, which according to Pennsylvania law is permitted, like we just said about the shoplifting. But does that mean he's being tried, though, in a New York court?
Right.
Is that the same thing here, Adam?
Yeah, it's the same general principle. It comes from a California Supreme Court case, and really all the states have sort of adopted it. And because he's wanted here, that would still transition over. But I think one of the things that we need to talk about here, too, is that we're talking about the Altoona Police Department, right? And so no police department is really ready for, like, the subject of a national manhunt to show up at your McDonald's.
Right.
And so even when you're trying to do best practices while you're effectuating an arrest, it doesn't mean in your head you're not thinking, oh my God, this is Luigi. I know the whole nation's here. We have him surrounded.
Right.
Let's get in that backpack,
Right.
And so there's an element of just sort of unpreparedness for such a monumental arrest to occur that I think is also part of this, and how they reacted and what actions they took or didn't take.
Go ahead.
Well, Adam, over the weekend also we know that more evidence was released, a bus ticket with the name Sam Dawson on it, as well as other things, a supposed folding knife that they say was in his person, in a pocket that was there. All of this is also part of what they're trying to get suppressed.
Well, the pocket is a little different than the backpack, but yeah, the bus ticket, and then also I think a list of things to do.
Exactly.
No, and
To-do
they
list.
also had, which we just heard just before I came down here, they also found maps, like a hand-drawn map with escape routes, with these other things, and also, which they didn't find at the McDonald's, but they found when they took them to the central processing area for people that are, for suspects that are arrested, was they found a silencer, and then that's when they found the gun. They didn't even find the gun in the initial search.
Right.
And there was a very quick thing that they really glossed over that I think bears some more research and investigation, which is they said, yeah, the bag was cleared. The bag was cleared. It's standing there. There's people standing almost like we are with our whole crew here, standing very close to each other. The bag was cleared for the bomb. And they kind of glossed over that. So I'm like going, I didn't see any canines. I didn't see any, what looked like canine officers, bomb squad, anything like. It's a small city, so maybe it would have been like a sheriff's bomb squad or something like that.
Yeah.
But they still thought like they had other things where they were saying, we think there's a bomb based on, who he is and what he allegedly did.
Adam, one of the toughest parts in all of this is just trying to convince the judge that everything was done above board. How did the proceedings go today while the officer was going? Was the judge also listening intently, following it along? Just walk us through what the field, if you will, in the courtroom today.
This is a very, very experienced judge in this building. This is
You've tried cases on him.
I've tried cases in front of him. I've done hearings in front of him. He's been around for a very, very long time. He is constantly paying attention. He's constantly thinking about what the right thing to do is, and he won't miss an argument. Sometimes you worry that your arguments are either just going to be not understood by a judge or missed, or it's just not going to hit the way you want it to. Every attorney in that courtroom will have an opportunity to have their voice heard and have their arguments listened to, and he will evaluate them fairly. And so they better be ready to put on their best evidence to try to get this stuff in, and the defense better be ready to try to keep it out.
And at one point the ADA used the term execution, and then the defense objected, even though I don't think you were supposed to have objections there. And he said, this is not the trial, this is a hearing, but believe me, I will not tolerate that kind of language at the trial.
Yeah. Yeah,
that.
I mean, he knows that he needs to run a tight ship here. There is added attention, there's added pressure, and we know the scrutiny that can come with these type of media cases, but he's not the type of judge that's going to wilt to that kind of pressure. And when the time comes for his trial, he'll get a fair trial, but everyone better be doing everything by the book or he will absolutely hold them to it.
Lisa, what was Luigi's demeanor? You said he was leaning in a couple of times, but just walk us through from the time court began till it was time to recess for lunch.
He has to, he's coming from MDC, from the federal jail where he's at because of the federal charges, but this case, everyone says this one will happen first, which is already underway, obviously. And so he's inside, he's escorted by them, but he's been very, stoic. Mm-hmm. And then when the behavior that we noticed is like over the time was like when he's sitting at the table, because there were a lot of videos. I mean, it was minute by minute. The ADA was going, now go to 9:59:15. So how tight those frames are from video, from what we do. But he had it like that. The ADA had all the questions prepped. He said, now, in this police officer, this Christine Wasser, who also looks like a TV police officer. She had the long sleeve thing on, and she had the blonde ponytail. But she's a 19-year veteran, and you could tell she's been in court before, because she was strictly to answer the question, no kind of attitude or any even like hint of like a any kind of feeling or vibe or anything like that, just straight facts.
She was a solid witness, it sounds like, giving testimony.
So. And that goes to the DA as well, because obviously you're allowed to speak with witnesses before a trial, before a hearing. You're allowed to prepare, just as the defense is, and that means that they're really well prepared, and that the DAs understand the gravity of what's happening up there and know what's on the table. And so I would expect every witness to be exactly the same, to be on task, on target, to know the talking points, and to know what to stay away from.
So the evidence that was released over the weekend, was that a part of discovery going into this, and how is it allowed to be released?
That's the question. I'm glad you asked that, because that's the question we're getting from a lot of people. The evidence came to us from the Manhattan DA.
Right.
They released it. Mm-hmm. So what does that? But the judge did not want video, because if the video was coming out that we're seeing today, that could really be edited in certain ways depending on what outcome. But doesn't that taint a potential jury to have that kind of evidence?
Oh, sure. But so does Harvey Weinstein being on the front page of the Post and the Daily News the day jury selection begins, right? That's part of New York City. That's part of what we do here in New York City, and that's part of what comes with trying a case here in New York City, that these things can happen. Now, does the DA's office use the media to its advantage sometimes? Of course. And this could very well be part of that. There's plenty of cases where the defense has the ability to do that as well. But a tainted jury, where is he going to get a fair trial in this country? You know?
Exactly.
And so it's one of those things that you just have to deal with it as it comes along, but it just becomes more and more difficult to get that fair and impartial jury when the time comes.
A quick follow-up to that. If that is the case, how this goes, then does the burden of proof shift even harder to the defense?
Well, the burden of proof never should shift to the defense. That burden of proof better stay in the prosecution the whole time.
Hold on. Speaking as a defense attorney, okay?
That's right.
Speaking as a defense attorney.
The defense has no burden. We remain having no burden. We'll continue to have no burden.
Guilty.
So with that, given if that goes like that, how much more weighty is all of this then?
Well, from what you've seen so far, that's a great question. Like from what you've seen so far, is what we saw today making it harder already for the defense?
I think it doesn't. It just depends who's in charge of talking to the media, right?
Yeah.
Because there are ways to talk about everything we've said, either positively or negatively. Yeah. He's got brilliant attorneys who are going to be able to put out there a message that's advantageous for the defense. And I think because of the way that this evidence was gathered, they're going to have some real weight to that, to what they're saying. So I think it's going to be interesting as this unfolds. I think the Manhattan DA's office should be as transparent as possible, because people can be suspicious about them hiding the 8-ball and them waiting to turn over evidence as though it's some sort of ambush.
Right.
And so they really have to be mindful of that.
But that would put them in trouble with the court, because all of it has to be presented during discovery, right?
Well, I don't know the answer, only because I don't know if it was turned over to the public this weekend. I assume that it was turned over to the defense team a long time ago.
Okay.
It would be a huge problem if they just turned it over to the defense team over the weekend and then tried to get it into evidence or use it for some sort of function in the hearing. They wouldn't be able to do that.
So also one other thing. So does this judge that's doing the pretrial hearing, does he continue with the actual trial, or is there going to be like a rescheduling, or
every case is different, and the way that it normally works would be that a judge would keep it for both hearing and trial, but we don't know. I assume certainly that Judge Carroll will keep this case all the way through, though.
And then does the defense now get a crack at this witness? Like, do they have time? Are they allowed to, like, cross-examine her?
Cross-examine, right.
Absolutely. There's no time limit. They can have as long as they want. They can be as thorough as they want. They can go back as long as they're still being substantive. And they can keep asking questions until the judge thinks that they are no longer being useful,
Oh, my goodness. So, wait a minute. You predicted last week that it was going to go into this week.
I did.
Okay. What's your prediction now, having been in the court and seen the stage that we're at, where they're still establishing these very basic things?
Well, I think you'll be seeing a lot of this, these grates and this sidewalk all week long.
Okay. I got distracted because it fell out. Question for you, though, as I try to regain myself here. In regards to the witnesses, right now, how many are we talking about? More than 24 or so? And
they said a total. They said in the beginning there would be a total of more than 24, around 28 or so. Today, but think about it. Today, the officer, she's only witness number 2. From today. So let's divide 2 into whatever is left. We had about 8 or 9 last
Right.
week. That's 11. So 14. You're doing two a day, which I don't think they're all going to take that long.
And the judge has his calendar day on Wednesday, so there's no hearing on Wednesdays.
Right.
And so, these things can stretch out. You can a simple hearing that you think is going to be a day can end up being 4 days. One that you think is going to be
in the springtime.
Yeah.
Adam Konta, thank you so much for a color perspective. Lisa, what can we expect on the back end as you go back?
Then I'm going to go run in and get a cup of coffee and warm up. They're still on the lunch break, and then but I'm going to be interested. It's going to be. I'm really looking forward, and we'll stay in touch this afternoon.
Right.
Adam's coming back to talk with you at 5.
Okay.
Phil Hamilton's going to stop by at 4.
Got it.
Talk with you about that. But it's going to be if the defense gets a crack at her, because the other thing too, I'm thinking in my head, like if from the defense point of view, if it's a bomb. Like you say bomb or possible bomb, everybody here in New York, they're
scat.
They're run.
We get out of the way.
Right. But they're standing around there, they're talking, and yes, not moving, not saying anything, not resisting anything, and so the sense of urgency that we would expect is not there. That's why I think the DA was going through, one of the reasons why he was going through so painstakingly to kind of point out, we thought it was a bomb. He asked her specifically, did you think there was a bomb in the bag? She says yes. They played audio, like there were, even though a lot of the audio was bad. And here was the other crazy thing. While they're searching the bag and they're going through this very, very important part of the whole video evidence, Have a Holly Jolly Christmas is playing in the McDonald's, like at full volume. Like the audio from the police body cams was really rough to hear.
And this was going on in court while you all listening.
Yes,
to all that.
So I'm like going, oh my gosh. It's like
Did that change the tension or the mood inside the courtroom?
No, I think other people were ignoring it because they're just trying so hard to, and I was too. I was like trying to, I was trying to listen very, very closely because, unlike federal court, they don't really use the microphones here, so you have to really be like glued to
hearing everything that's in there, which you know quite well.
And so so I'm like going, I'm listening and I'm trying to hear what she's saying, and they're going through the search, and it's about the bomb, and then. Or what they suspected was a bomb, and then have a Holly Jolly Christmas, and I'm like going, where is that coming from? I thought it was coming from outside or something.
It's just like the movie Die Hard, right? It's mayhem narrated by beautiful Christmas music.
Exactly.
Burl Lives just appears, just to bring everything home. Lisa, I know you've got to go get back in the line. Adam, I know you're going back in also. Meredith, I am without my IFB, which I don't know if you saw it, but Lisa and Adam certainly did. It blew off and fell into the grate here. So I'm going to let that's why I was looking down.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and Roy reacted.
I predicted that last week,
this
too,
is the second time this has happened to me. That's why Roy dropped his head down like this.
No,
So
you got to get the clip over the ear ones.
Yeah, I'll let you toss back to Meredith and wrap us up.
All right, so we want to thank criminal defense attorney Adam Konta, who's here with us, who knows criminal court very, very well from his clients. And I'll be back in. We're going to find out what's happening this afternoon. But there's been a lot of developments this morning. It's moving along. So Antwan, thank you very much for
Thank you for being out, for adding color to all of that, for not laughing when the wind blew my earbud down there. Meredith, we're going to send things now back to you from Lower Manhattan.